you ready? I said, are you ready for Let's Talk Whoa Hockey? And now, here are our hosts, Beth and Courtney.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Hockey season, it is right around the corner. Like, summer has gone. Wake me up when September ends, as Green Day would say, because we're halfway there and hockey is about to start. I'm your girl, Beth. This is Courtney over here.
Hi, it's me.
We're trying to remember how to do this because we
I
took our
don't
summer
remember
to
how
have
to
a
talk.
summer. I don't remember how to talk. I don't remember like words. What are words? Like I had to come up with a sign because that's been like empty for a really long time. So I had to like come up with something to put on there. This is season 3, episode 2. I mean, yeah, episode 1 happened like several months ago. But
I was gonna say, when the heck did episode 1 happen?
It was the last episode we recorded about like the PHF final and all of that fun
stuff. We should just call this like season 3.5 then, because
season 3, episode 1.5. Like we did intend to record this episode much sooner than now, but things happened in the women's hockey world, and I needed some time to digest the things that happened.
You know, it's kind of funny. I was watching our, beautiful intro video as it was playing and realized a lot of things in that video don't exist anymore.
Well, all of the PHF highlights in that video, those teams don't exist anymore.
And Jonathan Taves as captain of the Blackhawks doesn't exist anymore.
Corey Crawford hugging people doesn't exist anymore.
There was a sign of life recently, though. So
there was. He was actually at a concert with Scott Darling, which is like the greatest. Like this, I'm not gonna lie, it was the second greatest reunion that's happened in the last month, because the first greatest reunion in my teeny bopper heart was NSYNC reuniting for the first time in a decade and presenting an award, and then like going on to do all these other things. So my like little like elder millennial heart is just a flutter, because come on now. I mean,
I was more of a Backstreet girl, but I can appreciate it.
I never really differentiated between the two. Like I listened to both. I never really had one over the other. I had more NSYNC memorabilia than I had Backstreet Boys things. Like I have all the marionette like figures and stuff like that. But like I never really
I never really knew there was a rivalry until I got older. So
yeah. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. But we planned on recording this like after the NHL draft. And then like the day we were going to record, the women's hockey world exploded.
Literally.
And that recording was canceled. And now here we are several months later, picking up where we left off. So episode 2, hooray, it's finally here. We, of course, as always, brought to you by 5 in a Game Sports Network. Make sure to check out the network and the socials on Instagram and Twitter. It is at 5 and a Game SN. And the TikTok is actually deactivated, so I'll have to update that later. And of course, before I forget, make sure you follow us on the socials as well. On Instagram and Twitter, you can find us at Talk Will Hockey Pod. And you should probably be watching this on YouTube, because that's where all the fun happens and you can see all the crazy. And you can follow us and subscribe on YouTube at Let's Talk Will Hockey. Make sure you like subscribe and click the bell and like and comment and do all those YouTube-y things. We're going to start with, ironically enough, the less painful part of hockey offseason, which was actually the Blackhawks.
For once
it wasn't men's hockey that like shattered my heart.
I guess we should start off with like the sad thing that happened with the Blackhawks, though. Yeah. So Rocky Wirtz died. I don't mean to laugh at that. It's just, it was so out of nowhere that it doesn't seem real,
Yeah, no. And so Rocky Wirtz did pass away. It was definitely a shock. Like it was one of those, I think you texted me and were like, seeing on Twitter that Rocky Wirtz died, and I was like, I'm sorry, what?
I know.
And then I got on Twitter because I won't call it the other thing because it's always going to be Twitter.
It's Twitter.
I got on Twitter and was like, hold on, what? I texted announcer dad and he was like, hold on, what?
I know. I texted Papa Dagger and he was like, huh?
Yeah. No one, like, I mean, yes, he was older. Like, don't get me wrong, he wasn't like in his 30s, but like
he was never like
no
decrepit.
No, like no one was expecting this at all. And apparently from what little did come out, he had been fighting off an illness for a couple weeks. He did pass surrounded by his loved ones. As much as you and I especially had our issues with some of the things that happened with Rocky Wirtz, that does not lessen the fact that he is the reason the Blackhawks are what they are today.
Absolutely.
After his father passed and the dollar billboard days ended, Rocky really revived this franchise, made it one of the fans and of the people, made it more accessible. And for that, we will always be grateful.
100%.
I will never not be grateful for that. It doesn't discount the awful things that happened, especially in the last 2 years. It doesn't discount his tirade at that town hall meeting, but he is the reason that we are where we are today.
Can be thankful for the good things he did while still acknowledging that,
yes,
you know, as all humans are, he's very flawed, some more so than others. And in his later years, perhaps maybe more so, but he did do a lot for the Blackhawks and probably hockey in general, just with the influence he had and the money that he put into the sport. So
I mean, I feel like Fifth Third probably wouldn't exist if not for Rocky.
Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't.
Johnny's Ice House was great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But Fifth Third,
I probably wouldn't be here as a hockey fan if it wasn't for Rocky, because they were never on TV.
Yeah.
You know? And even being in Rockford here, that's still far enough away to where there's some separation between the Blackhawks fans of Chicago and Chicagoland. And
well, in
Rockford.
Without Rocky, you might not have your piggies, because
this is also true. Which
the Rockford Ice Hogs were a team that didn't exist up until the late 2000s. Previously, the Blackhawks affiliation was the Norfolk Admirals. Pretty much most of the still remaining from the initial days of the Rockford Ice Hog staff, they were Admiral staff. Mark Bernard played for the Hampton Roads Admirals. So, I mean, the piggies might not exist if not for Rocky Wirtz.
I mean, they were a UHL team before they came into the AHL. So I don't know if he or the Blackhawks had something to do with that. Obviously, I wasn't around in the hockey world at that time, even though I'm born and raised here in Rockford, and there's just not a big thing here. But
the Blackhawks did make the decision to move the team to Rockford and basically make the Rockford Ice Hogs an AHL team. And essentially in doing that, they actually basically took the staff that they could, the staff that was willing to go from Norfolk to Rockford, which is where Mark Bernard and Al McIsaac and all these other folks came from. I mean, both Mark and Al played for the Hampton Roads Admirals back in the 80s and 90s. I actually have Al McIsaac and Mark Bernard trading cards in this house somewhere. So they took the staff that they wanted to take and that was willing to go. And then the affiliation changed. Since the Blackhawks were now playing with Rockford as their AHL affiliate, the Admirals got a new AHL affiliate. I don't want to talk about it because it was the Tampa Bay Lightning and then they broke my heart. So, I mean, Rocky did a lot for this organization, a lot for the fans of this sport. From everything that I've heard, and most of this is after his death, because, you know, the stories always come out after someone dies about different things. He was an absolute gem of a human being. If you met a man in the street.
That's kind of the interesting thing, you know, right? Especially with all of the bad media that surrounded the Blackhawks. There were no bad stories that came out about Rocky after he passed.
Yeah, the only bad story really is his reaction at that town hall,
which can't be forgotten.
No.
For as much good as he did, that can't be forgotten. And that has to be mentioned because it's
Mm-hmm.
very important, and it's an important part of the Blackhawks history and their launching pad to hopefully move forward into a more positive space.
Yes.
But
And I mean, even the Jenner and Block report did say that Rocky was not aware of anything that was going on, which, I mean, a CEO chairman of a team, generally, they're not typically involved in the day-to-day operations and problems and things like that happen. So
right. And I
his
mean,
reaction at that town hall was atrocious. Like, we
Yeah.
had a whole wine-fueled rant about this on
Oh,
Pump
we
and
did.
Ice.
Oh, we did.
And so, I mean, it's one of those things where it is awful. It is tragic.
And he
I
has
mean,
a family, you know, like
yeah,
as much as you may not have liked the guy, not you, Beth, but just
yes.
the general you, as much as some people,
the all-inclusive you.
yeah, as much as some people may not have liked the man, I mean, he still has a family, and it's sad for them, much like how we saw with the passing of Bobby Hull, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, and I mean, Bobby Hull, that one was tough for my dad. And if
right.
something's hard for my dad, like,
Yeah.
it gives me feelings. And anytime I interacted with Bobby, he was an amazing human being. He was such a kind man in his later years. I can't speak for him in his younger days. I never knew him. I was not even a twinkle in someone's eye, nor were either of my parents for some of his earlier days.
Right.
Like, I can only speak from my personal experience, which was anytime I interacted with Bobby, he was just a kind, genuine, wonderful old man. And
Same.
the other part of that is we do have to give people the opportunity to change and grow and get better. You can't just say, you were this way 20 years ago, so you must still be this way today. You have to allow people to change and grow and become better human beings.
Yep.
And you also have to allow people the chance to show that they're a better human being. However, there are some cases, like with the guy who used to wear number 65 for the Blackhawks, I'm not even going to say his name, when someone continually shows you who they are, believe them. Like,
yeah, this is true. But, and I mean, people also have to be understanding if some Hawks fans or hockey fans or just people in general don't like that person because of what they did. Like, that's valid as well.
Oh, for sure. Like, I'm not saying love everybody.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
But if someone messes up and it's significantly awful horrible, barring a few exceptions, there are obviously exceptions to everything.
There are exceptions, yes.
If it's the worst of the worst, like, we're done.
Right.
But
and I mean, he was getting to that edge, but
he was. And I mean, I'm never one of those, like, it was a different time, whatever kind of situations, but you also have to take in the cultural significance of when some things happened.
Exactly.
Because life was different.
Things were different, and that has to be understood while also recognizing that it's not okay, but these things have changed over time, which is a sign of progress. And maybe if he was that same age now or in these days, things would be different. You'd have to hope that, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
And in saying how much of a good man he seemed public facing in his later years, because that's all we're gonna know. We weren't in his private life. You just have to hope that that is truly the man he became in his later years.
I know I saw some articles, and even after his passing, Bobby's children and grandchildren even said, like, he was not that man anymore. And I mean, if his family's willing to, like, come out and publicly state, like, I understand that he may have done this 50, 60 years ago.
Right.
But he is no longer that man.
I mean, that's big.
Yeah.
And you can't just take that with a grain of salt. I mean, of course, people maybe close to somebody want to have their memories seem better, but if they're also acknowledging that it happened, it's not nothing.
Yeah.
And again, if people don't like him because of what happened, that's totally valid. And we understand that, and we're not sitting here like, yay, Bobby Hull, yay, Rocky Wirtz. Just
no, not at all. And
we just have some important people in Blackhawks world, and they have families, and both of them did a lot for the Hawks and hockey. So
And I mean, even in his later years, Bobby still did a lot for hockey.
Oh my god.
So,
He would
I mean,
sit there and sign autographs until his hand fell off if he was
yeah,
allowed to.
he would. And I'd been in lines where that happened. The first time I met
Yep.
him when I was really young, my dad intentionally made us the last people in line because, granted, this was in the 90s, so obviously information didn't travel as easily as it does now.
Yeah.
But even then, 20 plus years ago, Bobby was the guy who would go well past his time at any convention or signing or anything that he was at, because he wouldn't just sign things and like take a quick picture and have you leave. He had conversations with you. He talked to you. He asked you why you fell in love with this game and all these other things. I mean, my mom and dad were all in matching Barbara Pole Blackhawks jerseys.
Yes,
and
I have one of them.
You
on my
have
wall.
one. You have
there.
one of the jerseys that
From
was
Announcer
worn.
Dad.
That is from Announcer Dad. That was the jersey that was worn. Mine is actually in the closet that I wore. But I mean, he always took the time. My dad made sure we were last in line because he knew we were going to have a great conversation with Bobby Hull. And it was. I still remember it to this day. I was a little starstruck, not only because Bobby was there, but the table next to him was Rocket Richard.
Oh, I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. Like, talk about like hockey nerd, like there was
So
two
many
tables in front of
goals
me.
in like that 20-foot span.
It was like 15 feet of tables for so many goals, like goaltender nightmares within 15 feet. And so it's, I mean, I was awestruck because I was literally standing in front of NHL greatness. Right. And he had a whole conversation with us. My dad worked with him several times when he lived in Illinois, and worked at Rocket Ice. And he knew my dad by name, like without being introduced. My dad ran into him at his birthday game at the United Center, and he was on his little scooter. And
oh my gosh.
He walked up and said, you know, hey, Mr. Hull, it's great to see you. And he goes, Donnie, if I have to tell you, call me Bobby one more time. Like, he remembered my dad's name, which is, I mean, if that's your childhood hero. Like, if Patrick Kane walked up to me and was like, hey, Beth, how are you? I'd be like,
if Corey walked up to me and was like, hey, Courtney, I'd fall over. That would be the end of me.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be a little less end of me for me because I have met and interacted with him in the past when he played for the Admirals. So it'd be like, oh, how do you remember me? Like, that was a really, really, really long time ago. But like, no, I get it. Like 100%. Because if 20 years later he was like, hey, Beth, how are you? I'd be like,
I know, right?
What?
And like,
you just a minute from onto the floor.
Yeah, and even it's funny because like the older I get, the less like starstruck I become, because you know you just get used to interacting with people and adults, and that's all players really are. But there's just certain ones that have just meant like so much to you in your hockey journey. It's like, oh my god.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's one of those things to all of our listeners. I will give you the greatest piece of advice that my father ever gave to me. I will pass it on to you. If you are ever anywhere and you encounter a hockey player and they are, say, eating food, do not interrupt them.
Yeah.
Do not interrupt them. Do not walk up while they're shoving like chicken wings or steak or whatever in their face. Wait until they have finished eating and have set their plate aside, like napkin is gone. Give them a chance to like take a drink of whatever beverage they are consuming and then approach them. You will have a much nicer interaction. Yeah. Like 100% much nicer interaction. This occurred when I met Bobby Orr.
Really?
And like, you got to let people eat their food. These men expend a lot of energy playing hockey. You got to let them eat.
They need calories.
They need the food. We're going to move on just because we're just going to go down the wormhole that we do with our ADHD brains if we don't.
I do want to tell one of my favorite stories about that, though, just because it's a very nice story and I like it. So I went to college in Chicago, so I lived right downtown there, and I saw Kaner out eating lunch a couple times at one spot. I won't say it just in case he ever comes back to Chicago and goes there. I don't want people like surrounding it. It wasn't anything super fancy. It was almost like fast food, but not. Anyway, so he walked in and we were sitting at a table and we were wearing Blackhawks jerseys that day, even though it wasn't a game day or anything. And he kind of smiled as he walked by and we were like, what the fuck? That's Patrick Kane. But we weren't gonna bother him because like he's having lunch, Yeah. And I saw him once with his whole family there too.
Yeah. They're grumpy when they haven't eaten, by the way.
Exactly.
Like,
and
talk to them after, not before.
Employees came over to us and was like, we know Patrick Kane's here, don't go bother him. It's like, the fuck? We're literally sitting here. He's sitting like 10 feet away at the same table because they have like long tables and you just sit there. And we haven't done anything. You really have to come over and say something? Anyway, so when he was leaving, he bought a second meal and he took it out to the homeless person who was sitting right outside the restaurant.
Oh, Kaner.
And gave it to him and said hi and then just went on about his day.
That's
I know. It's one of my favorite stories about a hockey player.
that is not where I was expecting the story to go in any way, shape, or form. And now I'm like, feelings.
I know. So I've never actually met Patrick Kane, but I have eaten lunch next to him a few times.
There you go. Like,
and I'll take
close enough. He like gave you like the smile when he walked in.
Did.
So I mean, he acknowledged your existence.
And we saw him and he saw us and that was that. And that was nice. And he was like, okay, these people aren't going to bother me. That's fine. I'm going to eat my lunch.
And some of those interactions, they don't go that way. Like, they don't go the, like, I saw you, you saw me, and then, like, you just went about your business. Like, they usually escalate. Photos are normally posted on some sort of social media app, and then this poor person is just bombarded. So
that's
I'm sure
one reason like I didn't take any pictures or any of that. Like I saw him there multiple times. He goes there for lunch. Or he did when he lived in Chicago. I don't want people just camping out and bugging him all the time. So
and it's like he acknowledged you and your awesomeness for not just like flipping out. And I mean, you let him keep his super secret lunch spot. So I'm sure wherever Patrick Kane is currently, he is super grateful that he can probably still go to that restaurant and have lunch. Because
I'm sure he'll be back in Chicago very often, even during the off season.
I'm sure. So with the passing of Rocky, it was officially announced just a couple weeks ago that Danny Wirtz has officially been named the chairman of the Blackhawks. That's how we got here. He's going to still maintain his CEO title, just like his father did many years ago. He still said he's going to continue to do a lot of the same things operationally that he's been doing. He just has chairman next to his name now, since his father has passed. And that was Rocky's only remaining title that he had left, was chairman of Blackhawks. So in that, he did also announce right around the same time that the Blackhawk sweaters are coming back. He said it was not going to be this season. He wanted to set the appropriate expectation, because could you imagine waiting the entire season for the
oh my god
sweater to come back and then just being filled with rage? He said it's not going to be this season, and it's possible that it may not be next season because Fanatics is now the uniform sponsor. They want to give them some time to kind of figure it out before they throw something new at them. Fanatics, hooray!
Is that this coming season, or is it after this season?
It's begun.
This coming season.
It has begun. But according to the reports that I've seen, Fanatics will be using the same factories that Adidas did. So there's not going to be like a significant shift in how or where the jerseys are made. So they're just branding them as Fanatics now. Bring back CCM jerseys. Come on. Please.
Even Reebok, but weren't they the same company anyway? So
yeah, Reebok and CCM are the same company.
Yeah.
But like bring back the CCM jerseys. Just do it. Like give us what we want. We want
AHL jerseys are still that.
Yeah. The ECHL's athletic knit. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because they do a lot of sublimated jerseys for specialty nights. So athletic knit is much better at the sublimated situation.
Gotcha.
So in this off season, Courtney and I have been discussing how insane this is. We're going to go to the draft first.
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
So the draft happened, and the thing happened where we got Connor Bedard.
Somehow, I still don't understand. And like, God bless Kevin.
4 lottery balls, changed everything.
Yeah.
So with the draft this season, the Blackhawks did have 2 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, 1 6th-round pick, and 1 7th-round pick. In the first round, they did draft Connor Bedard. Kyle Davidson was desperately trying to trade up
He was
in the first round. And then no one drafted the guy who he wanted. So we got Oliver Moore at 19, which is just insanity. Like, they kept showing Kyle on the phone and he was desperate.
He was working that phone. I'm surprised it didn't melt in his hand.
I am too. And I mean, he was honestly working the phone the whole draft. Like, there wasn't a time where he wasn't trying to make moves, because he obviously knows what he wants to do in building this team. So he's, making things happen. He's doing what he wants to do. And then there was a brief moment in time on draft day where Josh Bailey was a Blackhawk.
Oh, yeah.
He was a Blackhawk for about 47 minutes, I think, is the timestamps between him being acquired and then him being traded. He was traded. He was acquired and then traded for literally another pick.
I totally forgot that was a thing that happened.
I remember it happening, and I was like, oh, okay, Josh Bailey. And then I was like, oh, just kidding.
I know, same. I was like, oh, that's fine. And then, oh, okay. Goodbye. It was nice knowing you.
Yeah. They did obtain a 6th-round pick in the draft as well as a 2024 2nd-round pick from the Flyers in exchange for the 51st overall pick. So there was a little bit of shuffling for the 2nd-round picks. Courtney, I know you're super excited about the first pick of the 2nd round, so I'm going to let you speak on this gentleman, because I know
it's a goalie.
We got a goalie. And you want to know the last time we drafted in Nashville and got a goalie? Do we remember who that was?
Who was it, Beth?
I believe it was Corey Crawford.
That's putting a lot of pressure on Sir Adam over here.
It is, but like, we drafted real well last time in Nashville, so hopefully history repeats itself.
35th pick here, we took Adam, is it Guyon?
I believe it's Guyon.
Okay. And what I remember of him is watching him in the World Juniors for, is it Czechia?
I believe so.
It was either Czechia or Slovakia.
It was one of those two.
One of those two
countries that used to be one that are now two.
Yeah, right. One of those two.
That's part of what makes it confusing. Is it used to be Czechoslovakia and now it's the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and my brain just like short circuits.
Yeah, and I remember rooting for him in the last game that he played, and the last World Junior, whenever there was one in the summer and then one in the winters, all sorts of stuff.
It was all crazy because of the pandemic and rescheduling and insanity.
He put on a freaking goaltending clinic and unfortunately lost. Was he the goaltender that lost to that Bedard goal?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is very happy to have Connor Bedard on his team now instead of having to face him.
But you know, watching the World Juniors, you always see all these younger guys out there, and some of them have been drafted. Some of them are draft eligible either the following year or 2 years. So you see one that stands out and you're like, who does he belong to? And you start the Google machine. And so then
you're like, wait, he's 15?
Right.
What?
Right. So then I was actually golfing the second day of the draft, and I saw the notification pop up that they
then the text
message
the text message for me, because it was something along the lines of the Blackhawks just drafted a new fluffy monster.
Yes. And I started like yelling at my dad, oh my god, they got him, and he was like, I don't know who that is.
Oh, Papa Dagger,
catch up. He's a good goaltender, and we got him.
And I mean, the first day of the draft was a little crazy because there wasn't a lot of trading happening.
There was
Like,
literally none.
There was
There were
none.
no trades during
We
the
were all
first round.
sitting there like, it
Is something gonna no. Is something no.
The second day of the draft completely made up for that because it was trade
This is true.
insanity.
That's how it usually goes, really.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes there's big trades during the first round, like we saw with the Blackhawks last year with DeBrincat and Doc, but yeah, it was pretty crazy.
The Blackhawks, they had 3 picks this round, which was just insane. Like, I felt a little bad for Kyle because I felt like he never got to sit down in the second round. Like, he would go, make the pick, whatever, meet the dude, and then be like right back to making the pick and meeting the dude, and then right back because they picked at 35, 44, and 55. That is just enough time to like make the pick, meet the guy if he's there, and then go back to like, okay, now we have to draft somebody else because we're on a timer. So then they picked up Roman Kanserov, and then 11 picks later picked up Martin Misiak,
who looked very good in the rookie showcase. I must say,
yes.
Martin Misiak did.
Yes, he did. I mean, we'll get to the prospect showcase here in a couple of minutes because then in the next set of picks in the third round, they picked up Nick Lardis,
who could be the steal of the draft.
I 100% agree. Like looking at what happened, and what's gone on, like that may be the sneakiest Kyle from Chicago move that happened.
But maybe also not even the steal of the Blackhawks draft, which we'll see coming up here in a few picks. So continue.
So then we get Yuri Fleckman. And then we had to, like sit and wait and twiddle our thumbs while Kyle still tried to work some magic because we had no 4th and 5th round picks. And we moved to the 6th round and we pick up Alex Farrand,
who also looked pretty decent, if I recall.
That he did. And then
the best name in the draft.
The greatest name ever. We picked up Marcel. Like the jokes on Twitter when he was drafted were just perfection.
And he's a big boy, isn't he?
He's huge. Like he's not like,
you
know how like Alex Vlasic is really tall, but he's really skinny.
Real skinny. He's like
Marcel is not that man.
Just like full on man. Kind of like
he's a man.
Oh God, who drafted this guy in the first round who had like the full on beard going and just looked like a dad being drafted?
He looked like a full grown human. Like he looked like he had a wife and 7 children at home who were like just cheering at the television because daddy just got drafted to play in the NHL. He looked like a grown man.
Yes. Who got him? Was it Tampa? It might have been Tampa.
I feel like it might have been Tampa, but like they
or
called
maybe
his name.
Winnipeg.
They called his name and he stood up and started hugging people. I was like, oh, that must be that's not the dad.
No, that's a full-on man.
He's walking to the stage. That is, sir, how are you? Like,
maybe it was Winnipeg. Oh God, I have to look this up now. It's going to drive me insane.
Then we got
2023.
Milton Oscarsson. And the final Hawks pick was Janne Pellonen. So overall, it was a really good draft. I mean, the Blackhawks drafted 11 players this draft. 11. Like, it's going to be good. That Oliver Moore is fast. Like, fast.
Yeah.
Fast. And like, not like fast, like, oh my gosh, I have no control. Like, fast and skilled and controlled, and like was touted as the best skater in this draft class. So some of these guys might be small, but you know what? You got to catch us first.
It was Winnipeg, by the way.
Okay.
It was Winnipeg at 18th.
Well in Manitoba.
Colby Barlow.
Looked like a whole grown man.
Whole ass man.
Like, has a wife and many children back at home.
Yes. Tending the farm or something.
Yeah. It was, I remember texting and I was like, we were on FaceTime and we were both like,
this guy like 33?
This man has already played a whole NHL career. What's he doing back at the draft? Like, he's already played like a full career and retired.
He looked like he should be giving his retirement speech.
He was going up there to welcome his child to the stage, but he just got drafted. And then the Hawks did make a couple moves this offseason as well, which are ones that you and I both keep routinely forgetting that these people are now Blackhawks.
I'm gonna forget until the season's over. Just like how I forgot Nick Leddy was a St. Louis Blue.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like that's more like a trauma response. Like,
that's fair. That's fair.
And like when Brandon Saad was the St. Louis Blue, like I forget that happened, but I think former Blackhawks being on the Blues, like we just erased that from our memory because trauma.
Mm-hmm. Is something going on the Preds this year? I feel like there's a former Hawk on the Preds this year. Maybe not. I could have totally made that up.
I feel like you're right, but also we live in kind of the upside down these days, so it wouldn't surprise me. I'm literally pulling up Cap Friendly right now.
Oh god, the name was right on the tip of my tongue. Who is it?
I forgot Ryan O'Reilly was going to be a Nashville Predator this year.
That one hurts too.
Who is it?
I know
Kevin Lankinen
was. Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah, I know.
Is there nobody else?
I'm thinking, I'm looking, I'm digging. Because, names are currently escaping me. So, names are hard. Words are hard. I'm forgetting, how to do this because it's been a while. But that's fine because, it's fine.
It's fine. Oh, you know what? Kobe Barlow just signed his entry contract with Winnipeg. That's funny. I just opened up Cap Friendly, and that's the first thing I saw.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any names that instantly...
And I could have totally made this out. Hold up. Let's see. Maybe it was just O'Reilly I was thinking about. And
yeah, because that's still, weird to me that Ryan O'Reilly is going to be on the Predators. But,
yeah,
I mean, Ryan Reeves is going to be a Maple Leaf. So, we're living in a very strange world. We're also living in a very strange world where Corey Perry is a Blackhawk.
Yeah, there's that.
Which is weird because I've spent so much time disliking Corey Perry.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely is one of those situations where...
Okay, I totally
now he's on...
make this up. Okay, cool.
Now he's on...
Good talk.
Now he's on my team. And I like that he's here, especially with sweet little Connor Bedard going to be playing. I like that Corey Perry is here. Please protect our sweet, sweet boy. Make sure no one hurts him. Thank you. And then Taylor Hall is a Chicago Blackhawk.
Yeah, that was probably the weirdest one to me, maybe. Even weirder than Corey Perry.
Yeah, and he came over with Nick Foligno, which is Nick Foligno.
Also weird.
I just
it's just kind of all weird.
I texted you a week ago, and I was like, "When did we get Nick Foligno? When did it happen?" And we were both like, "Oh yeah, with the Taylor Hall trade. Oh yeah, Taylor Hall's on the Blackhawks."
Yeah.
And then Ryan Donato signed as a free agent with the Blackhawks.
None of these moves sound real.
They don't. And I'm not even sure if the start of the season is going to be enough to be like, oh, okay. Because they've been posting training camp videos because training camp started on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been posting training camp videos of Corey Perry talking to Kendall Coyne Schofield. And I'm just like, what?
There's a lot of discontent in that one image or one video.
There's my brain just hasn't processed this, just like it hasn't processed that Darren Pang is gonna be on the broadcast this year.
Totally forgot about that until he tweeted about it. What was it, 2 days ago?
He tweeted about being back in Chicago 2 days ago, and we were both like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the thing that happened.
And I've never enjoyed his calls, regardless of whether it was a Blues game or a nationally broadcast game. I've never enjoyed them. I am unsure how I'm going to feel about this.
Same.
I might have to watch the game on
already. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the second Sharpie went to Philly, I was like, no.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then we also lost Colby Cohen to Philly.
Did we?
I'm pretty sure it was Colby Cohen.
Yeah, I think he's gone. That's fine.
I can't remember anymore. Like, things have been happening.
So many things have happened and none of them feel real.
They don't. Like, we still, up until like a week or two ago, I still was in disbelief that Connor Bedard was a Blackhawk.
Same.
And then before we get to the prospect showcase, Lucas Reichel is going to be a center this year.
Yes.
Which,
okay. You know, he's played a lot of center in Rockford. Okay. And he was drafted as a center. So, I mean, that's not super surprising. He's played wing when he's come up to the Hawks just because it's a lot to put on a kid. Yeah. But he's gotten better at his faceoffs, and I don't know. I don't hate it. He'll still play the wing probably on power plays and whatnot. But
yeah, I feel like now that Jonathan Toews is gone, don't get me wrong, Taser is Taser.
Yes.
3 Cups captain, amazing. Having someone take a faceoff in practice against Jonathan Toews does not teach said person how to win faceoffs, because Jonathan Toews will win the faceoff.
Yes.
Like, have them face off against somebody and have Jonathan Toews like be there, like dropping the puck and like giving them instruction.
Yeah.
He's not the guy to take the face off against.
Kind of like when they brought Perot in to teach face-offs.
Yeah. Like, have him teach the face-off. Don't have him take the face-off. Like, that's just going to, like, it happened with Kirby Dach. He got so frustrated at the face-off dot. And he's way better at it now.
Yeah.
Because he was being made to practice taking face-offs against Jonathan Toews, who is and will always be one of the best guys at the dot.
Yeah,
for a
just like
face-off.
Ryan O'Reilly. Like, you put those guys in the dot and you feel pretty confident there.
Yeah, and so like he's not the guy to take the face-off. He's the guy who should be teaching the face-off.
Is Taser taking this season off, or did I make that up too?
No, you didn't make that up. Jonathan Toews is taking this season off. He's not retiring. He's taking this season off and plans to play next season.
Right.
I will say, okay, Johnny, if you can do it, you can do it. However, this will now be the second full season in 3 years that he has missed. And he's not getting any younger. And he still has all of his issues from long COVID. And I don't see it happening. Like,
neither.
I don't see it happening. Courtney and I talked over the summer about how like Jonathan Toews was quiet retiring. He wasn't going to make a quiet quitting things. Like, he's just quiet retiring. He's just going to ride off into the sunset. And I feel like maybe this is the introduction to that. Like, maybe he has our phones tapped and he was like,
that's a good idea.
Sounds like a great idea. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to do it this way instead.
Yeah. It does sound like a very Jonathan Toews thing to do. Just like never say that he's actually quitting the game of hockey, but just like never play again.
Like at the end of this season, he'll come out and say, body's still not feeling great. I'll come back the next season.
Like the door's always open.
Yeah, the door's always open. Like, I love this game. I'm not ready to stop. And it's like, okay, but Johnny, your body is telling you.
Your body's ready.
Your body's ready to like be retired. You've made a lot of money. You're good. Like, it's time.
Come back as a coach. You can still like skate with the guys and teach them how to take face-offs.
Come like coach for the Blackhawks and teach them all how to take face-offs. Like, don't take them against them. Don't take them. Teach them.
Yes.
Teach them.
Yes.
Teach them. Do that.
That would be fantastic.
And then speaking of Toews, the Blackhawks will not have a captain this season.
Thank goodness.
They will be running with 3 alternate captains. Nothing's really been announced yet. Obviously, Connor Murphy's going to be in the mix. Seth Jones is probably going to be in the mix. That third one is like, is it going to be like a rotating A? Are they going to like
Foligno? I could see that.
Possibly. or are they going to have like because I know some teams when they do the 3A situation, they have like a home alternate,
Oh yeah,
and then an away alternate.
Away.
So I mean, it's yet to be seen.
Who the hell is on this team? I'm gonna go to the Blackhawks cap friendly page. I don't remember who's on this team.
The prospect showcase did actually happen in Minnesota as well. In Connor Bedard's first game in a Blackhawks sweater, he scored a hat trick and had 5 points,
something like that.
I don't know, a whole lot of points. I think it was 4.
Yeah.
Because he scored a hat trick and had another point, and the Blackhawks shut the Blues prospects out 5-0. And
with a Drew Comesso shutout.
Yeah,
I'm
Drew.
so excited for him.
I am too. Like,
I can't wait.
That kid's going places. So, I'm
Hopefully
really excited.
He gets to stay in Rockford for a bit and doesn't get rushed.
Yes. Well, that seems to be the Kyle from Chicago way, is they're not rushing prospects. Like Connor Bedard is obviously like a different story. This kid's been ready to play in the NHL for like 4 years, and he just turned 18. He had to wait until his 18th birthday to sign his entry-level contract, and his dad had to be there to witness it. Like,
yeah. And like, he can't play in the A. So it would be go back to junior, where you clearly
can't murder them. Like, kids would cry on their way home if they still had to play against Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
Like,
so but like that was the goal last year, to have Arvid and Rockford the whole time, and then you go out and fucking sign Mrazek and oh god, Beth, what was his name?
Alex Stalock.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Oh my god.
Ma'am.
All I could think of was Arvid's name, even though that's not what I was trying to say. But you go out and get those two who are always injured. And what happened? They both got injured. So then Arvid had to be the guy.
He held his own when he had to, though. Like,
he started playing really well. And then he got sent back down and had a growing injury. I'm like, they broke him.
The Blackhawks organization did not have a great run with goaltender injuries this past season. So knock on all the wood, like,
so this year,
blessings up to the hockey gods.
Yeah. You'd have to assume that they're going to run with Mazarek. Please, everybody know, we know his name is Peter Mrazek. Anyway.
We can't help but say Mazarek because of Gary Bettman. Like,
yes.
It's what we do.
I forgot that some people don't watch every single episode. Yes. But you've got to assume they run with him and Soderblom in the NHL, because
that's what is currently on Cap Friendly.
Yeah.
It's going to be Mrazek and Soderblom.
And then what? Then they'd have to call up Drew if something happens, and Mrazek's always injured.
We have Drew and Jackson Stauber.
Right. Maybe they'd call up Jackson then, because he played well in the NHL.
Well, and he's also a little bit older.
He went on that crazy 5-1-0 streak or something last year.
It was beautiful, but we were all also yelling at him like, "Justin,
stop losing games." But it was so confusing. I was like, where did this goaltender come from? Because you play him in Rockford, it's like goals galore going past him. I'm like, what the fuck?
I wish I had
so mad.
I wish I had the answer. Blackhawks training camp, like I said, it has started. The schedule is out. It's basically a whole lot of practice days. They do have a group game and a non-group game and a preseason game in versus St. Louis on September 28th. And then on October 1st, there is a preseason game at Little Caesars Arena versus the Red Wings. They play the Red Wings again in Chicago on the 3rd. They have a preseason game versus Minnesota on the 5th of October. And their final preseason game will be at St. Louis on the 7th of October, gearing up for the start of the season on October 10th in Pittsburgh versus the Penguins. And this is going to be the fun part, because I'm actually going to be in the city of Chicago for opening night. So Dagger and I are going to watch a Hawks away game at a bar together. I'm super excited about this. Like, the timing for this work trip just was perfection. So Dagger and I are gonna catch a game. We're hoping Papa Dagger's gonna come too. If not, it's fine. We'll just watch a game on our own. It'll be weird to like watch a Blackhawks game and not be like on FaceTime or texting.
I know. I'll be like texting you sitting right next to you, like, oh, right, you're next to me.
Oh wait, I'll be like FaceTime. Oh, hi, Courtney. Hey, FaceTime. What's up? How you doing?
Hey.
So it's almost Blackhawks hockey time. This season, it's going to be one of pain. Like, don't get me wrong. Do not expect this team to be a contender. It's going to
be fun, though.
It's going to be fun. Connor Bedard is going to be amazing. We need to keep the boy healthy. Somebody needs to get the kid a chef, because he was at the media podium talking about how he FaceTimes his mom and sets her down on the counter so that she can walk him through how to prepare food for himself. Sweet boy. And then they were like, so what have you been cooking? He was like, I don't know, that was just something to say up here. Oh, Connor, we love you already. Like, darling boy, we love you already.
Gosh, I just hope that people don't put too many expectations on him coming right out of the gate, because like he's obviously going to be a great player. He's already a great player, but he can't save a franchise himself. Like,
especially not in like his rookie season. Like,
exactly, the kid, like you said, he just turned 18. Like, it took a while for the Blackhawks to get there. They had Keith, they had Seabrook, they had Hjalmarsson, they had Crawford in the system with Hammer, and then they get Johnny, and cool, and then he goes back to college for a year, right? I think, and then they get Kaner, like, great. And they have Sharpie and all these guys, and they start doing good things. They start playing really well. They bring Big Haas in, and obviously that sparked everything, because Hossa is just amazing.
I know plenty of people who were like, Marian Hossa was cursed, and I was like, not in Chicago.
Not in Chicago, he wasn't.
I mean, that man went to 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row and lost the first 2, came to Chicago and brought good old Stanley home.
God, he's the best.
And also, the Blackhawks recently lost their assistant GM. This had literally happened yesterday. We're recording on Friday, so this happened yesterday. Jeff Green has gone back to baseball. And the same time this is happening, Marian Hossa is landing in Chicago. I'm not saying that I've been saying that Haas should be in the front office since his one-day signing was announced, but there seems to be an open position for an assistant general manager in the Blackhawks front office, and that guy Marian Hossa happens to be also in the city of Chicago right now. So, like, Danny, do your thing. Like,
for real. Just do it.
Just do it. I mean,
everybody wants it. Just do it.
Yeah. And I mean, he got to, like, he had his farewell game this summer. The roster for that game was insanity. It was really cool to see like the highlights and stuff on social media, especially because the rink was a little foggy because it was summer. So it was a little like spooky, but really like cool looking, etc. Yeah. But Big Haas is in Chicago right after we lose an assistant GM. Just saying, like, the man makes changes in franchises.
Like, I can't see him being on a coaching staff. I think he could be a very good coach. I can't picture Haas behind a bench, but I could see him being in the front office.
Yeah, I feel like in the front office, especially like in an assistant GM role, there is a little more interaction with the players. Yeah. There's more interaction with the farm system in Rockford and Indy. Like, that's really kind of a perfect role for him to teach what made him so great at hockey, because it wasn't just his skill, it was his passion, and it was his heart, and it was his love for the game. I mean, it's more than just how he played the game. It was every part of him that made him such a phenomenal player, and that is something you can't learn from a book. You have to learn it from a person who was that way.
Exactly. So, kind of like the role that Jason Spezza took on in Toronto.
And now Pittsburgh?
No, didn't he? Pittsburgh, yeah, he followed Dubas there.
That happened, and my brain still hasn't wrapped its head around
that. Yeah, Tree Living's the GM of Toronto.
I mean, Mike Babcock was the coach of the Blue Jackets for about 47 minutes. And that went exactly how one would expect Mike Babcock returning to the NHL to coach would go.
Just who thought this was a good idea?
The Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, well, fair point.
I mean, there's nothing else exciting to do in Columbus, so why not hire Mike Babcock?
They have very good coffee in Columbus, I will say.
They do.
They also have Timmy's there, and
their arena is also super like cool looking. Like
Nationwide is awesome.
I love the hat trick like display case, the hat trick hats, like coolest thing I've ever seen.
I've had a great time every time I've gone to a Columbus Blue Jackets game.
Honestly, like their merch people, best service I've ever gotten because
they're so nice.
I went and saw a Blue Jackets preseason game when Brandon Saad was a Blue Jacket.
Okay.
And I really love the Blue Jackets third jersey with like the circle cannon emblem on it. I always have. I just love it. It's got, the old school laces. So I got a Brandon Saad jersey and they had to obviously name and number it while I was there. They said it would be ready in the first intermission. I went up in the first intermission and it was not ready. And they said, "Where are you sitting?" And I told them. And then they brought my jersey to me in the middle of the game. Like I just looked over and the guy was like, "Ma'am, did you order a Brandon Saad jersey?" And I was like, "Why?" "Yes." yes, I did. And he handed me the bag. It was name numbered, and they even upgraded the name and numbering because it took longer. So that it's like the actual like thick like letters with like the nameplate with stitched on letters.
Yeah.
Like they upgraded
me.
So cool. Hi, Gary is coming to say hello. Hey buddy. He had to announce his presence.
Likes Columbus.
Apparently. Gary, do you want to go coach the Columbus Blue Jackets? He's like, "No, thank you."
I don't want any part of that, actually. But yeah, Columbus gets a bad rap, and they really shouldn't, because Columbus is a cool city. I know it's in Ohio, but
yeah.
Columbus itself is a very like progressive place, and it is a pretty cool city. I enjoy it, and like I said, I've always had a good time at every Blue Jackets game I've gone to. And they have a really neat little arena area down there.
The concourse is really amazing too. Like not just the hat trick section, like the whole concourse is just...
It is. It's nice.
It's the way all arenas should be. Because there's a little bit of hockey history. There's like, just Columbus Blue Jackets history. Gary is really apparently into Columbus. So
he's super into Columbus. Oh my goodness.
Apparently Gary is a Columbus Blue Jackets fan. I'm so sorry. You'll be going to the ASPCA tomorrow. Nice knowing you. But yeah, no, I had a great experience there. My mom and I were on like a road trip. And so we stopped in Columbus to stay the night. And because we started in Florida to drive to Northern Michigan. And that is like a 19-hour drive. Gary has decided if he can't be on the desk, he will just be on the printer.
So just staring in the background.
We stayed in Columbus, and the hotel we stayed at was right next to Nationwide.
All about Columbus.
And it was a great experience. The people were great. The food was great. They had a Timmy's that made my heart happy.
Same. They also have super easy parking. So like if you don't stay in a hotel next to Nationwide, I usually stay a little further out just because it's more cost effective.
We got a really good deal, and we got a really good deal because it was like a last minute. So they were just trying to like book out rooms.
Yeah.
So we got a really good deal on the room, and it was right next to Nationwide.
That's nice.
And it was like we just needed a place to sleep, and it was a really nice hotel that happened to be the least expensive option, so we took it.
There you go. Yeah, I usually stay at the Red Roof Inn there. It's a little further out, but I know it's like one of those discount hotels, but it's always been really nice. Yeah. The one that's closer there. But yeah, the parking garage is right next to Nationwide. And whenever an arena has good parking, I always have to mention it because I am very thankful every time.
I was pleasantly surprised at how good the parking was at the United Center.
Yes.
Like it's so well organized. Like
like they don't have a garage; they have a bunch of lots.
And one of the lots it used to be Chicago Stadium. So,
rip. It's fine.
There's like a plaque in the parking lot that says like former home of Chicago Stadium, because it's like literally directly across the street from where the United Center is.
Okay.
So
like the C lot or whatever.
Yeah, I believe it's the C lot, but it's like direct because the footprints are essentially the same, just moved across the street.
Gotcha. Across Madison.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so now we have to stop.
Parking is super easy there.
And like they're really good at like getting you perfectly in so that they can put as many cars in there. But like if you have to leave for some sort of an emergency, there's just enough room for you to get out.
Yeah, like you can get in and out, and there's lanes and whatnot to do so. But
and it's like just enough room, enough room.
Oh yeah, it's way better than Cubs parking, where they just like throw you in a back alley and make you park as close to the wall as humanly possible, to where you almost have to climb out the passenger side if you're driving.
The Cubs were actually on Undercover Boss, and parking is one of the things that like the dude, like he was a parking attendant. And like, so I mean, it's great, but we have to move on. We're not going to talk about the stuff that's really going to get me going yet. I do want to let everybody know it's some Let's Talk Wawata time. ACHA seasons are actually underway. There were 2 games in the last couple of days. However, our friends of the podcast, we always like to shout them out. Dearborn, their first game is on the 22nd of September. They are facing Concordia University, Ann Arbor. Lake Superior State and Indiana Tech, both friends of the pod. They are actually opening their seasons against each other.
How perfect.
Lake Superior State will be traveling down to Indiana, and they actually are playing a weekend series on the 29th and 30th of September. And then our friends at the University of Michigan, they open their season on the 29th at Concordia University, Ann Arbor, and then return home to face off against the Michigan State rivalry. That game is on the 30th at Yost. And it's going to be, I mean, it's Michigan State. So like, come on now.
Hey,
that's the thing. So we want to obviously wish all of the teams who have come on the podcast the best of seasons. Bowling Green, CMU, all of you, we absolutely adore you. We hope you have an amazing season. We are here if you want to come talk about it. Don't hesitate to reach out again on Twitter. We adore you. Y'all are doing great. We're very proud of you. Keep going. Yeah. So have an amazing season. We will keep you guys updated on the Wawacha season throughout the rest of the season as it goes along, because they do end a little early because, you know, college.
Yeah.
So we will keep you updated on standing scores, all of that fun stuff as we move on. Now we have to talk about the thing. I'm going to get this is the part. This is the thing that literally was like, no, I can't. And I know you probably wanted to hear, but I can't. Like, I was a literal mess for days. This summer, the Billie Jean King Foundation folks, the people who own the Dodgers, like all of them got together and they acquired the PHF and its assets. And in that acquisition, they shut down the PHF from functioning, terminated all player contracts, and announced that a new league was coming. We didn't really know the name of this league, just that a new pro women's hockey league was going to start playing in January of 2024, which we've all heard before. Like the PWHPA announced this 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen. Essentially, what was 11 teams total between the PWHPA and the PHF was then consolidated into 6 teams to grow the game.
Right. Yes, that's what that does.
Yes, growing the game. These 6 teams are equally split between the US and Canada. For many, many weeks, we did not even know where these teams were going to be playing. There were already rumors starting that there were PHF cities that would no longer have women's hockey teams. One of those did end up being Connecticut, and I took that one real hard.
Mm-hmm.
We're still not over it. I'm not going to lie. Still not over it. Don't know if I'll ever be over it, but it's fine because I adore my whale. I will always love my whale. I love everything that you brought into my life. I love every game that you played, and I'm very excited that several former whale players did get drafted into this new league. There was literal loud screaming happening in my house when players from the whale got. So 11 teams down to 6. So those 11 teams all had full rosters. So that automatically means that like half of the professional women's hockey players in the world would not be playing professional women's hockey anymore. They announced
to grow the game. To grow the game.
They announced several weeks after the acquisition. They did finally give us at least the cities that these teams will be playing in. The Canadian cities are Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. The US cities are Boston, New York, and...
It's not a city, Beth. I mean, I guess it is. New York City is a city, but...
Oh, no, it gets even more fun with the New York one. So Boston, New York, and then Minnesota.
He likes New York.
Oh, Gary loves women's hockey. We all know Gary loves women's hockey. So the New York franchise, I say New York because currently they've not told us where any of these teams are going to be playing. And other than like they're going to be playing in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, New York, Boston, and Minnesota, which Minnesota isn't even a city. Minnesota
That's not a city.
is a state. It is a state.
Like, is New York, the New York team, going to be playing in New York, or is it going to be like North Jersey, like
no,
the Giants?
So apparently they're going to be playing in Connecticut.
What?
The current news is that the New York franchise will be playing in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Sorry, you killed me a little bit there.
No, it's okay. Trust. I am aware. And I don't know how to feel about it.
What?
It's very confusing, especially like I don't know. I don't.
So they get rid of Connecticut as a team, but they're still gonna play there.
Yes.
What? Okay.
But also, none of the team names are staying. None of them. The Toronto team will not be the 6. The Montreal team will not be the Force. The Minnesota team apparently will not be the Whitecaps, which is confusing because the Whitecaps existed long before the PHF NWHL. They existed before the CWHL. Gary just shook my whole desk jumping over to the printer.
He's real mad about it.
The Whitecaps have been around for a real long time. And if the Minnesota team is not named the Whitecaps, I don't know how to feel about that. Like, that is more significant to women's hockey history than some nonsense.
Maybe they'll be the Minnesota Wilderness.
Their jersey their logo will be a pink version of the Minnesota Wild jersey with a lady bear instead of a boy bear.
Right. You gotta chop the balls off.
Just, goodbye. It's gonna have little bear cubs following her.
Okay, that'd be cute.
It would be cute. The Boston team will not be the Boston Pride.
That's weird.
Apparently it was too close to the other. Gary, stop eating the clock.
He's really mad about this new league.
He's like feelings about this women's hockey situation.
I need to cause some shit right now because I'm mad.
So like the Boston team will not be called the Pride. There's been lots of rumors that because they think it's more associated with LGBTQ pride than the fact that their mascot was a female lion. But
will they be the Knights? I don't know. Because like that's what everybody wants, right?
Well, you know. So
anyhow,
we have no idea where these teams are playing, which is even funnier because after the PWHL draft, the PWHL put out that for a $50 deposit, you can ensure that you can secure tickets to watch the PWHL this season, but we're not going to tell you where they're playing.
So, Minnesota's a pretty big state.
I mean, Minnesota's a big state. Granted, like at least the Canadian teams like Toronto,
you have a city,
Montreal,
least.
Ottawa, Boston, like obviously Boston. But like New York is a big state.
New York,
and also if you're talking about them playing in not New York, then like if I live in Manhattan, I'm not sure if I want to drive to like Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Right. Like if it was in North Jersey, like they have plenty of transportation. You could just hop on the train.
Yeah.
But Connecticut, I feel like you'd have to take the LIRR if it even goes there. Maybe not because that's Long Island, but
yeah.
I
don't know. And there's apparently they might be playing at Long Island or like.
Are they gonna take over the Islanders arena?
I don't know. I wish I could give you an answer, but they've told us nothing. They've asked people to put deposits down to buy tickets and not told them where these teams will be playing. We kind of know the color scheme thanks to Corwin, who also has been on the show. While watching the draft, they discovered like the name tags and like all of the different things had different color schemes on them. And Corwin does have an amazing like graphic on their Twitter page. And it's got the color schemes. And apparently the teams have changed their Twitter profiles to match those color schemes. So it looks like Corwin was correct. #influencer. But we don't have logos. We don't have team names. We do know at least like some of the players who are going to be on the teams.
But not like what the teams are.
But not like what the teams are. The draft, the PWHL did announce that they're going to do like a free agency period before the draft where players were going to be allowed to sign contracts. And I believe, if I remember reading correctly, that these are all of the free agent signings prior to the draft were multi-year contracts. During this period, Boston signed Aaron Frankel, Megan Keller, and Hillary Knight. I'm sure that last one really surprises everybody.
Oh
Minnesota signed Kendall Coyne-Schofield, Kelly Panic, and Lee Steckline. Montreal signed Anne-Marie Desbiens, Laura Stacey, and of course, Marie-Philippe Poulin. Like, come on now. New York signed Alex Carpenter, Abby Rock, and Micah Zandy Hart. Ottawa signed Emily Clark, Brianne Jenner, and Emerence Mashmeyer. Toronto signed Renata Fast, Sarah Nurse, and Blair Turnbull. And that's terrifying because we've all seen them play hockey together. And if you notice that there's something in common with all of the players who were signed during the free agency period. Oh, Courtney, lady in the back. What you got?
Do they all play for their national teams?
There is that. Yes, they do all play for their national teams. They all also have one other thing in common. Do you know what that is?
What's that, Beth?
They all played in the PWHPA last season.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Yep. All of them.
No way.
Yep, every single one. So after free agency, the PWHL was nice enough to give us the draft eligible player list. This list consisted of 268 players.
And there one fake one.
Well, no, the 268 includes the person that we're unsure if they exist or not.
Okay.
268 players declared for the PWHL draft. 146 forwards, 78 defenders, and 44 goalies. We literally could have two teams of just goaltenders. That would be epic. I would adore that so very much.
That would be amazing, especially if they were all in their goalie gear.
Yes. Of that breakdown, I actually went through the entire list and got every league that everyone played in.
Give it to me.
Put it on my note. So we have 98 PHF veterans.
Okay.
63 PWHPA veterans. 49 NCAA or U Sports players because they did group them together.
Okay.
13 SDHL players. 3 ZHHL players.
Where do they play?
I have no idea. 2 Nastian Liga players. 2 players from the Japan women's national team, which I loved too.
God bless them.
I loved it.
I fucking love watching Japan play in like the Olympics and all that.
The respect they have for the game and like the playing surface. Adore them. 2 EWHL players. 1 SWHL player, 1 Denmark 2 player, 1 DFEL player, 1 WOSHL player, 31 players who did not play in 2022-2023,
Okay.
and 1 player who played in U18 AA. The youngest draft eligible player was Lily Legault from Canada. She was born in 2006 and declared her draft eligibility at 16.
Oh God.
That
2006 birth years are 16 already.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
All right.
So the draft happened. It was on, they did broadcast it in Canada on CBC and TSN.
Okay.
In the US, if you lived in a Nesson viewing area, you got to watch it.
Oh, wow.
Boston has a lot of respect for women's hockey. They always have. They showed several Boston Pride games on Nesson without even being asked to, just because it's hockey. They've always been very firm supporters of women's hockey.
You could say they're proud of them.
Heyo. Or if you weren't in a Nesson viewing area, you could watch it on YouTube from CBC or Twitch, because the PWHL just changed the name of the NWHL PHF Twitch account and broadcast draft on Twitch. So
now we're just going back to Twitch instead of, you know, the whole deal with ESPN Plus. And okay.
So the draft coverage started. I did learn an interesting fact. They were interviewing Billie Jean King because obviously she had a lot of influence on this situation happening. Kendall Coyne Schofield is actually the player who reached out to Billie Jean King about what these athletes would need to do to start up a league. And the first question that Billie Jean King asked them is, do you have a players association? And Kendall Coyne Schofield said no. And Billie Jean King said, you need to do that first. So they started on that, CBA, so on and so forth. During the pre-draft coverage, before anyone was drafted, there was a distinct moment when the panel said, after the CWHL folded, none of these players thought that they would ever play professional women's hockey ever again. Now, here we are. The PHF existed. Like, it literally existed. It paid women up the most recent season in which the PHF played. Many of their athletes were making livable wages. Not just like, I need a roommate livable wages.
Right.
Michaela Grant-Mentis signed an $80,000 US contract. You don't need a roommate on that kind of salary. They even increased the practice player salary and the PTO player salaries. This past season, PHF this season that is now not going to happen, there were players signing 6-figure contracts. 6-figure multi-year contracts. But apparently, after the CWHL folded, none of these players thought that they would ever play professional women's hockey, except for the 98 players who declared for the draft,
right?
Who were PHF veterans.
Right.
So that already had me on like a hackles up, frustrated level of life.
Yeah.
The draft starts. Taylor Heisey is the first ever professional women's hockey league draft pick. No one is shocked by this. She is very good at the hockey. Not shocked. It took 4 rounds before a PHF player was drafted. Courtney, you've kind of caught up on recent PHF times. If you had to guess who the first PHF player, well, actually, hold on. Let me asterisk this real quick. Alina Mueller was drafted in the first round. She was drafted by Boston, which is where she had signed a contract with the PHF. However, she had never played a single game in the PHF. She signed a contract to play in Boston this season because she just finished college hockey.
Okay.
But she never played a single PHF game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an asterisk next to that because even in the reporting about PHF players drafted, they did not include any players who had signed but not played in the PHF because they're just tracking them as PHF veterans and PWHPA and then everybody else. So Alina Mueller, again, that was not surprising. People were surprised that she signed in the PHF instead of joining a national team and going the PWHPA route. So,
wow, it's almost like there was like a professional league for her to play in, so she opted to do that.
Imagine that. Now, we get to the fourth round, first pick of the fourth round. You've kind of watched some recent PHF, so you know who some of the stars are, who scores lots of goals, all of those things. Who do you think was the first PHF player drafted to the PWHL?
I think I would have gone with Marchment.
You would not be correct for several more rounds.
Oh.
Not that I'm not happy about this. This is a former Whale player. Dominika Laskova was the first PHF player drafted. Yes.
Okay.
Wait, no. Dominika was on. Sorry, I'm getting teams confused. She was not on the Whale. I'm getting teams and names confused.
It's fine.
especially like the Slovakian type names because they all kind of there's nits and
some of them kind of look alike.
Yes. So she was the first PHF player drafted.
Okay.
A few draft picks later, Boston had a draft pick. And it's a PHF player. If you had to guess, who do you think that they drafted?
Well, I know who it's not.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. She was the PHF MVP this season.
Oh no, now you're challenging my knowledge. Oh God. Was she the captain of Boston?
No, that's Jillian Dempsey. And we're not going there yet.
Okay.
They drafted Lauren Gable. Now, when they drafted both Alina Mueller and Lauren Gable, so Alina played college hockey at Northeastern, which is in Boston. And they mentioned how she's excited to go back to Boston. Did they mention the Pride? And that she had signed a contract there? No. They didn't really even... I mean, they showed PHF highlights of Lauren Gable playing hockey. I have pictures of them on my phone because I was so shocked they were there. And they mentioned that she was excited to play in the city of Boston, not continue playing in the city of Boston, but to play in the city of Boston. And we
like for the first time.
For the first time.
Obviously.
Then we kind of scroll down the list. We get to, let's see, where is it? Sorry, I have to, this is all handwritten. We get to the 6th round. Would you like to know who the first 3 picks were in the 6th round?
Siri wants to know.
No, that was the Amazon device whose name I can't say because there's another one right here.
I don't know. Was Elaine Chuli one of them?
Elaine Chuli was not one of them. She did get drafted though. First pick of the 6th round, Kennedy Marchment to Montreal.
6th round.
6th round.
It took 6 rounds for Kennedy Marchment to get drafted.
Then Ottawa is up to the table, and they draft Daryl Watts.
Okay.
And then I don't know how she made it to the middle of the 6th round, but New York finally picked up a goaltender named Corrine Schroeder. You know, the all-time leading shutouts goaltender in PHF history. Like, she just stops pucks, just stops them.
And it took 6 rounds.
6 rounds. 6. Then we kind of, we've got some more PHF draft picks. Elizabeth Giguere was drafted in the 5th round along with Katie Tabin. Also in the 6th round, we had Callie Flanagan. In the 7th round, we had Aneta Tajrolova and then Teresa Vanasova. In the 7th round, here's my whale pick, Katerina Marasova, drafted in 8th round. 8th round. Brittany Howard, also drafted in the 8th round. Denisa Karazova, also drafted in the 8th round. We get to the 9th round, which by all standards in my book was a total sweep by PHF players / veterans / people who signed contracts in the PHF for this upcoming season.
Beautiful.
Sydney Morin was drafted by Minnesota. Shocking, I know. My girl Allie Monroe was drafted by Toronto, which means her and Kennedy will be playing against each other. Fun times. Another Whale veteran, Taylor Gerard, is off to Boston. Jade Downey Landry is headed to New York. And then Zoe Boyd is headed to Ottawa. And Gabrielle David is headed to Montreal. They signed in the PHF, but they did not yet play in the PHF because they were coming out of their college seasons.
Gotcha.
So that whole round, 4 PHF veterans, 2 players who had signed in the PHF. Ain't nobody
there was a professional league for them to play in.
Imagine that.
So they signed there.
Imagine that. Also, side note, I'm not sure if PWHL Minnesota was aware that they could draft players who were not from Minnesota. Because most of the players that they drafted are from Minnesota or went to the University of Minnesota or played professional hockey in Minnesota. There was a lot of Minnesotans happening. In the 11th round, Minnesota picked up Amanda Leveille. Goaltenders, love them.
Mm-hmm.
Just this far away from being an Isabel Cup champion. This far. And then the pick that shocked the PHF fan universe with the 6th pick of the 11th round, former Boston Pride captain Jillian Dempsey was drafted by PWHL Montreal. Jillian Dempsey, who has like a larger than life poster inside of Warrior Arena in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Jillian Dempsey, who is an elementary school teacher in the city of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Will be playing professional hockey in Montreal. And this one, it was like, like the all caps tweets that just started flowing in on Twitter from all of my Boston and WoHo fans. The list was long. And the first person who popped into my brain was Corwin, because they are my reference to Boston women's hockey.
Okay.
And they tweeted, and I was like, you are the first person that I thought of. Like, my jaw hit the floor. Jillian Dempsey will not be playing women's hockey in Boston. And to pour salt on the wound, she will be playing professional women's hockey in Montreal. I mean, the Boston-Montreal rivalry goes well beyond men's hockey. It exists in like all hockey and sports.
It's just hockey rivalry.
Yeah, like it just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which gender is, doesn't matter if you're non-binary. Boston and Montreal, we are not hockey friends.
It's like Detroit and Chicago. Like,
yes. Or Chicago and St. Louis, or Chicago and Nashville. Our list has grown because the NHL broke the Red Wings rivalry by moving them to the Eastern Conference.
This is true. But when I think of like Blackhawks rivals, like Detroit still pops up into my head.
Very much so. So that one was just like a...
Do they have to sign with the team that drafts them?
I believe so, yes. I believe it's sign or don't play.
Oh.
If I'm remembering correctly.
I'm
not sure if trades are a thing either. Um,
so we just don't know.
We just don't know.
Oh.
I mean, we also don't know. Like Natalie Spooner was drafted. She put in the PWHL did allow compassionate waivers for players who were deeply rooted in the city in which they currently lived. They were able to put in a compassionate circumstance waiver and say that, like, I only want to play for Toronto, or I only want to play for New York, or wherever. But come to find out after the fact, because there were a lot of questions on Twitter about this, Natalie Spooner did put in a compassionate waiver. She just had a baby less than a year ago. All of her family lives in Toronto. Her husband is employed, and they have a home that they've purchased in Toronto. So she put in a compassionate waiver. However, it did come out later that players who put in a compassionate waiver did have to be drafted in whatever spot was appropriate to where they were ranked by the people who ranked the draft people, not like the pundits and the media people. There was like a PWHL like draft group who evaluated players and ranked them basically to give to the GMs and stuff. And so they had to be drafted in the appropriate place, even if they had this compassionate circumstances waiver. They had to be drafted in the appropriate place to match that. That came out after the fact, because there were a lot of questions like, why did they draft her? They could have drafted somebody else. She put in, like, they could just sign her. Like, they didn't have to. But apparently that's not the case.
Why didn't she just sign as a free agent during the free agency period? Okay.
I mean,
okay, sure. I guess.
And like, I feel bad for Sophia Shaver-Kunin. She's married to Luke Kunin, who plays for San Jose.
Okay. Yeah.
She got drafted by Minnesota.
That's far.
And they just got married, like this past summer. Just got married. And also, I wonder
if he'll get traded to Minnesota.
That would be great. That happened. I mean, that happened last season. Like the last season before that, I can't remember. But the Avs traded for somebody, and his girlfriend played for the Whitecaps, and like they basically like broke up with the Riveters like on Twitter and became like Whitecaps fans because
oh god, I forgot who it was.
I can't remember who it is either, but it was 2 seasons ago because I was in Tampa. I was in Tampa when this happened. And I was like, it's really messed up to like break up with your WoHo girlfriend on Twitter when they're in the middle of playing a hockey game. Like, that's rude. That's rude.
For real.
So, but yeah, the compassionate
he did used to play in Minnesota. Okay, I was right. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
In the 12th round, we did see Olivia Zafuto go to New York. Another confusing one, Cheyenne Darkangelo now plays in Boston and not Toronto. And Michaela Cava was drafted by Minnesota. And then round 13, we had Liz Schleppers go to Minnesota, Amanda Boulier go to Ottawa, and Elaine Chuli go to Montreal.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong. That is so wrong. She belongs in Toronto.
I'm aware.
What? What?
I know. Jillian Dempsey belongs in Boston.
I mean, yes, but like we're talking about a goalie here. Like what?
I know. You
can't do that.
I trust. Like, my brain started to break when some of these players were drafted by some of these teams because it's like, no.
Elaine Chuli doesn't play in Montreal. Toronto.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
And I'm very heated about this now.
No, trust me. If you go on women's hockey Twitter right now and talk about Elaine Chuli or Jillian Dempsey or Cheyenne Darkangelo or some of those real like these were franchise faces, you will meet all of the people who are just as confused as you. Anne-Sophie Batty was shockingly drafted by Montreal. They did pick up several French Canadians along the way. Whale star Katrin Lonergan was drafted by Ottawa. Emma Woods is going to New York. Mintu Tuominen is going to Minnesota. Sydney Brott was drafted in the final round, the 15th round by Minnesota. Olivia Knowles to Toronto. Jess Healy to Boston, and Alex LaBelle to New York. The last draft pick, Lena Lundbaum, I believe that it was announced today that she actually will not be playing in the PWHL this season. I believe she opted out at some point, and maybe the news just didn't get there. Now, you may be noticing there's a lot of significant women's hockey names that are missing from this draft list. Soroya Tinker.
Yeah.
Michaela Grant-Mentis.
Yeah.
Allie Thunstrom.
That's
Kelly Babstock.
Mm-hmm.
Madison Packer.
Yeah.
Nora Ratty. Becca Gilmore, as in USA Hockey goaltender. Becca Gilmore. Maddie Rooney. Do you know how many goals have been left on the table by just a couple of these names? But
I'm so confused.
You and me and all of the women's hockey world are confused.
If nobody else, how do you not draft MGM?
Or Soroya Tinker, either one of them. You want to know what a lot of those players had in common? Several of them are people of color. And that was pointed out by Erica Ayala on Twitter, that Kelly Babstock and Soroya Tinker and Michaela Grant-Mentis, several other players. Yeah. Just prior to the draft,
I was thinking it. I didn't want to go there in case that wasn't a thing.
Yeah. It was pointed out by many people on Twitter.
Okay.
I first saw it from Erica Ayala, who, of course, I love listening to her call hockey games. I hope that we get to hear that again. Her voice on the broadcast just brings me sunshine. And I really hope that we get to hear that this season. I don't know. Nothing's really been. We don't know anything.
I think it's preposterous that Allie Thunstrom wasn't drafted, obviously, because I fucking love Allie and she's the reason I like WoHo to begin with. But MGM, you can't and Soroya, like you said, if you're starting a WoHo team and you have this whole pool of players to choose from, and they're in there, you go, I'm blessed and I am taking them to my team.
Sam Wesmer, I love her. I tweeted during the draft that how is Michaela Grant-Mentis still on the board? And she responded, we should get her and start a new team and make her our captain. We all need friends to support us like that, because I will happily go grab Michaela Grant-Mentis and start the 7th PWHL team right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
The Chicago, the whatever she wants it named. I don't care. It could be whatever she wants.
Just as long as it's not fire. I know that team already exists in another way, but we don't talk about fire in the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
We don't. Nope.
It exists. Nope. It's a soccer team and they suck because they took the name. But
they cursed themselves by naming themselves the Chicago Fire. I'm just saying.
They did. I would legitimately be like, what do you want this team to be named? And she could tell me and be like, okay.
You got it. Let's do this.
This is your team.
Danny, I need some seed money to start a Chicago-based PWHL franchise. Can you hook me up?
For real. Do you know that would be such good press for the Chicago team to do? I bet Kendall would get all upset about it, but nobody cares anymore
for the next couple of years.
Exactly. So just do it. You have 5th, 3rd right there where they could play.
Well, apparently they want to play in more established arenas.
All right.
And there are going to be some neutral site games that are played in NHL and AHL arenas this coming up season. Apparently the season's going to start on the 1st of January and coincide with the Winter Classic.
That's stupid.
Yeah. Well, and look, here's my thing. Season 1 of the NWHL, the Boston Pride did play at the Winter Classic because the Winter Classic was in Boston. And Dana Lang was severely injured in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have very negative memories associated with women's hockey happening at the Winter Classic. And I don't want it.
Yeah, but it's stupid. So first of all, like, not many people watch the Winter Classic because it's already competing with the bowl games for football and college football. So you have that. And then you have the Winter Classic for the devoted hockey fans who aren't going to be watching the bowl games. And so that's already a thing. Like, January 1st is coming. The Winter Classic is going to be on that day. If you're not watching football, you're going to be watching...
The Winter Classic, and then also the Heritage Classic happens that day too, right? I can never remember.
I think it's on the same day. It might be.
Never remember.
So then
also, the Winter Classic this year is in Seattle. Like, I just dropped my phone because it's in Seattle.
Yeah, that's not
very
wintry.
Seattle is not very wintry.
Right. But then you're going to try to have a brand new league that nobody outside of, like, the hardcore WoHo fans know what it is. Like, you just tell a random hockey fan who maybe followed the PHF, maybe didn't, maybe has never watched women's hockey, that, there's a PWHL game on today. It's their first game as a league. And they're going to be like, what's that? And you tell them it's professional women's hockey. They'd be like, well, I've never heard of it. Why would I watch that?
Imagine that.
And it doesn't matter how many amazing names are on there who truly deserve to be watched. They're going to be watching college football or the Winter Classic, or they're going to be so hungover from New Year's Eve they just don't give a damn and they're asleep all day. Like, it's the stupidest day to start.
My thing is, like, because I've been to a Winter Classic. I went to the one in DC with my mom.
I went to the one at Notre Dame.
It is a very long day already.
Yeah, it is.
So you're expecting fans to potentially go to the Winter Classic, watch a full 60-minute women's hockey game, deal with the intermission hubbub, hullabaloo, and as they get the ice ready for the NHL game, and then stay through that entire hockey game as well.
That's not going to happen.
No.
People are going to show up for the NHL game, or they're going to show up and be tailgating.
Yeah,
outside.
I was exhausted just like with the singular Winter Classic game.
I fell asleep on the bus back from the Winter Classic game.
The intermissions are longer. Because there's concerts in each intermission. The intermissions are longer. The anthem is longer. It takes longer to clean the ice because they have to use tiny Zambonis and not big boy Zambonis. And then you have to take into account the weather.
It's freaking cold, usually.
And hopefully it's cold. And hopefully the sun's not, hitting a strange angle that gives the goalie an unfair advantage on one end than they have on the other. And they've got to swap sides in the middle of a period.
Or they postpone the damn thing until nighttime.
Like,
I don't know why they don't always just schedule it to be at night. Like,
I don't understand, like, when I went to the one in DC, because that's the goaltending switching that I'm referencing, because that happened in the first period. There was an unfair advantage because of the angle of the sun coming into the stadium. So instead of delaying the start of the game just a little bit, because the sun was close to, like, being behind the stadium where it wasn't going to affect anything, they decided at the first stoppage in the 10-minute mark of the first period, goalies were going to swap sides. You want to know what had happened after the 10-minute mark in the first period? The sun was no longer an issue.
They could have waited 10 ass minutes.
They could have waited, even 20 minutes. You could have waited, because you got to think hockey stoppages, so on and so forth.
Fair, yeah.
Could have waited 20, 30 minutes. Started the game, Did you not scout the location before you scheduled the game time? And like, did you check and see like where the position of the sun was going to be? Like, these things are planned well in advance.
Planned. They have their location. They don't really
they know where it's gonna be played.
Yeah. Thankfully, the one I went to, it was cloudy, so it didn't really matter. But they did run out of food during the first period.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, they like somehow found a hot dog like on the floor somewhere for me when I ordered it. I don't know where it came from. They just walked out of the back. They're like, "I found one.
I found a hot dog for you," and you're like, "Oh God, how long has that been here?"
I know. I was starving, so I ate it. But I got a beer too to like kill any of the germs that maybe came.
There you go. Alcohol cleanses the insides. Exactly. The last little bit of PWHL stuff before we move on to the thing I really want to vent about, because you and I have already vented about this, and I can't wait to vent about this after we share the very exciting news part before we vent. Melody Daoust did opt out of the draft like hours before the draft. She will be a reserve player for PWHL Montreal, but she did opt out just before the draft started. Like, people were like, "Why hasn't she been drafted yet?" And we were all like, "Because she opted out." And they were like, "No, she didn't." I was like, "It's literally all over the internet." So the last bit before we wrap up for the day, a really exciting piece of news happened for anybody who follows women's hockey and minor league men's hockey. Mariah Fujimagari, who in 21-22 was the goaltender for the Connecticut Whale, signed a PTO with the Kalamazoo Wings in the ECHL. When I saw that news pop up on my Twitter, my happy little heart.
Whoa, what just happened there?
I wasn't even touching anything. I have no idea what just happened. Why were there balloons? I don't understand.
Why were there balloons?
What happened? StreamYard is possessed, apparently.
It's like it was celebrating the news.
I know, where did they come from? It was perfect, but where did they come from? So my happy little heart, super excited, very happy, shared it immediately because it was posted first on ECHL Week, which is a Twitter page, that she had signed the PTO. First off, I was excited that it was a woman signing a PTO in the ECHL.
Yes.
Second, I was excited because it was Mariah Fujimagari, former Connecticut Whale goaltender, signing a PTO with the Whale, or with the Wings. Fuji was 5-0-0 in 21-22. Like, phenomenal. Then, of course, this news makes its way around the rest of the hockey world. And it ended up in the ECHL fan group that I'm in for my local team. And the post was essentially, I'm not calling them out. I'm vaguely calling them out. I've told people who the local team that I go to, people know. If they've listened, they know.
The Jacksonville Ashman?
I don't know what you're talking about. The post came in the group basically, "I've seen some news about some lady signing a PTO in the ECHL. What are your thoughts?"
That's not what you ask people from Florida.
No. So I was like the second comment on there because I'm an admin in the group. So
God bless you.
Yeah. I got that a new post was made. And I was like, Fuji was phenomenal when she played with the Whale. Super excited for her. She's not the first woman to sign a PTO or play. And this is awesome. She's fantastic. She's wonderful. Then comments came in, well, how's the team going to accommodate her? She's going to have her own room and her own locker room. She's not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and she can't change, and she can't do this, and she can't do that. I'm sorry. Are you saying that these male professional hockey players are incapable of being in a locker room or a hotel room or anywhere with a female hockey player? Or are you saying that the female hockey player is incapable of being in the locker room, showers, whatever, with the male players, because it's 2023. It's not the 1970s. Like, players don't shower in like a giant tile room with like a 6 spigot like hole coming out of the thing anymore.
Like a maypole that they're all just stand around and
like that doesn't exist. The locker rooms have shower stalls.
Right. Like,
and
everybody deserves their privacy, first of all.
Like, first of all, everybody deserves to shower alone in a cubicle and not in a giant tile room with a spigot like flower in the middle of the room.
It's like a sprinkler.
So, like, first off, those don't even exist anymore. It's 2023. It's not 1962. Second, most female hockey players at the elite level have played the majority of their hockey careers on boys or co-ed teams. Because up until the last few years, girls hockey on a youth level did not exist.
Right.
So there were no, like, there's the Girls Southern Hockey League, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
Amazing. And it's all teams of all girls. And they're in the South and they play hockey, and I love it. That hasn't existed for very long. So they've all, like, these men have played with women and girls on their teams when they were younger. These women and girls have played on teams with boys and men when they were younger. This is nothing new for any of them.
They're athletes. They're in there. They're thinking about the game. They're preparing.
If you've ever met a hockey player of minor league pro up during hockey season, would you like to know what they care about? Hockey.
Really?
That's it. They have such regimented schedules, and they are so in their hockey player mode. Hockey players are very much like creatures of habit. They nap at the same time. They eat at the same time. Hell, most of them shower at the same time. They leave the house at the exact same time to go to practice. They leave practice at the exact same time to go home. Like, they are creatures of habit. Hockey is a very physically intense sport. They have to be that creature of habit to try and stay as healthy as possible when playing a 70-plus game season of a very physical sport. They are not like, there's a lady on my team. I'm going to go peek at her in the shower.
Right?
Like,
and if there is somebody like that, it's probably a good thing to know that.
They'll be gone real fast.
Because that's a bigger problem than...
Yeah, that's a bigger problem than there being a woman on the team. Like, if you feel comfortable enough to do that,
yeah, if you can't control yourself around a teammate,
if you can't control yourself at work,
what
are you doing in your private life?
Exactly.
So,
like, you and I are both women born as women. We were assigned female at birth. We are woman identifying.
Yes.
And we have
my pronouns are she, her, herself. Like,
same. I mean, you can call me whatever you want. I don't
just
really
don't
care.
Call me late for dinner.
But that is how I identify. That is how you identify. We have both been through schools in the United States. And what I am wearing right now, which is just a tank top,
that's a dress violation.
Not have been okay because my shoulders are distracting.
Yes, but boys could wear that because their shoulders are not distracting.
Right.
So my favorite comment was, if she can play, why not? To which the original author responded, do you want guys on the girls' team? Just saying, it's not fair. So here's the thing. In the NHL, AHL, ECHL, SPHL, and pretty much every other HL that exists that doesn't
and then
have
we go across the pond.
that doesn't have a W specifically that stands for women in its name is not a men's league. There is nothing in the rules for the NHL, the ACHA, the ECHL, the SPHL. There's nothing in the rules that say that you have to be a man to play. Nothing. However, in, say, the PHF, it was a women's hockey league that also had a transgender athlete policy that specifically laid out the steps that you had to have already gone through or about to go through to transition either way, male, female, female, male. It was outlined because this league is specifically for women. The ECHL, NHL, all those, they are not specifically for men. Traditionally, the athletes are male. However, in the 90s, Manon Rhéaume played with the Tampa Bay Lightning in the preseason.
Right.
Shannon Zavados played in the SPHL. This is not the first time that a woman has played in the ECHL.
Why are they always goalies?
Huh?
I mean, I guess I kind of get it. I said, why are they always goalies?
They're pretty much always goalies. One, because the number of goalies that exist in the world is a very small number.
That's fair.
Two, most women have played on non-contact teams for a long period of time.
Also.
So, I mean, I would love to see a forward or a defense person who is a woman play minor league hockey, AHL, NHL. I don't care.
Makes me wish I had played hockey when I was younger, because I would totally go in there and just wreck shit.
my dream when I was a young child was I wanted to play in the NHL. But I wasn't allowed to play in the NHL. Why? Because I was a girl. And then Manon came. And I was like, but look. But also, where I lived, there wasn't a lot of room for girls to play hockey. So, is what it is.
I mean, kind of the same here. The Junior Ice Hawks has grown. I don't know if they even call them that anymore, but it's the same program. But it's definitely grown, but it's still more young boys than.
Yeah. And essentially, then after the whole, like, well, you know, do you want men in women's league? The person responded and said, if she's good enough when held to the same standards as any other goaltender, more power to her. To which the response was, I think if they're going to do it, then it needs to be both ways. Then guys can play in the women's league. Except, as I explained, there is no rule in any of the leagues that specify you have to be a man. However, for women's leagues, you have to be born female or identify as female and have transitioned or are transitioning or going through the process. And even on the other side, Harrison Brown transitioned and is a trans male and played in the NWHL. Harrison Brown is part of the reason the NWHL rebranded to the PHF. Because
which is amazing. I'm not dying because of that. But it just reminded me
water
how
like stuck in your
it just reminded me how mad I was when they named this new league. Because they put the fucking W back in it. And then the response to but these rules don't exist. You're making up rules that don't exist. So if one team has a female, then all teams get one? No one's saying that. What?
Like, no one's saying that.
Nobody's saying that. Nobody, quote unquote, wants that. Like, sure, it'd be great. But nobody's
it would
like,
be amazing.
Yeah, nobody's like, oh, they have one. So now we just have to conjure one up somewhere because we need one. Whereas we saw there's
manifest a woman to play on our hockey team.
Plenty, as we just saw, who did not get drafted into this new fantasy bullshit league that could play perfectly well in the ECHL or any other league, really.
And here was my favorite comment. The whole point of having women and men's sports is so they can play with like-skilled opponents. A man on a woman's team would dominate. A woman on a man's team would be dominated. I just don't understand the desire to kowtow to people who obviously only want to play cross-platform because they want to break rules. When you boil it down, this has nothing to do with love of sport and everything to do with hate, anger, and anarchy. If you cannot understand that last sentence, ponder a bit before you reply. To which I was like, hate, anger, and anarchy would be great names.
Oh, they would.
For a women's hockey team.
Oh, they would.
We could have the Boston Angers. And the Toronto Anarchists.
Oh, yes.
And the Ottawa Haters.
I love it.
Like,
we need the Chicago Chaos.
That's going to be our team.
Yes. That's our MGM team right there.
Our MGM team, the Chicago Chaos. Sorry, MGM. We know we said that you were going to name the team, but it just came to us.
But we have a name now, and I think you're going to like it because, you know, it's fine.
We have a name now. and so to this, I responded, there are no rules, again, reiterating, barring a woman from playing in the NHL, the AHL, the ACHL, or many other leagues. This has everything to do with love of sport. Everything to do with love of sport. It's not easy. I work in a male-dominated industry. It is not easy to be a woman in a male-dominated industry. It is not easy to be the only woman in a locker room for a hockey team. It's not. You don't do that unless you love the game. She loves playing hockey. She's been given the opportunity to play pro for KZoo. She isn't the first and won't be the last woman to do so. This literally has zero to do with hate, anger, or anarchy. To which he responded, I refuse to discuss this with you. You are condescending at best and basically rude. No more comments from me.
Basically rude. It's my new band name. Basically rude.
My new band name is Condescending and Basically Rude.
Yes.
To which many of my friends reacted to that comment on Facebook, which gave us another response. He replied to the comment after saying, no more comments from me, and said, I see all your laugh reactions, but I've talked to her in the past and I know what
I see.
So, in conclusion, as I step off my soapbox and we get ready to wrap up this episode, because the first one in a long time, we had a lot to cover. Of course it's long. Let's be honest. Of course it's long. They won't all be this long this season. We promise. We will condense them and do the best we can, especially since from now until January, we have no hockey to talk about except for the Blackhawks and ACHA. We don't have to cover all of the happenings in 5 months in one.
Hey, Beth.
Yeah.
If you had to put money down right now, will there be professional women's hockey played in January?
I'm only saying yes because Billie Jean King makes things happen. And I will say yes. I will say that according to the people who know things, there are already negotiations happening on players that are being invited to training camps. I don't believe that professional women's hockey will be played on the 1st of January. But I do believe that professional women's hockey will start in January of 2024.
First half or second half?
I would say the first half. And of course, this is all dependent on like building negotiations and where we're going to play and all of these other things.
You know, having a name.
Infrastructure. A team name.
At the least.
Jerseys. hockey socks that match the jerseys. I mean, to take a line from Hillary Knight, which kills me, some professional women's hockey leagues are like glorified beer league. And you know, at least beer league teams know where they play hockey every week.
You're right.
So
I have no faith in this.
I had no faith in it when they announced like 2 years ago that the PWHPA was going to start its own league. And then they announced it last year and said that it was going to be announced like during the NHL playoffs, and then crickets. So I've got nothing. And here's the problem. I adored the PHF. I adored the PHF. I adored my Connecticut Whale. I adored all of the people who I met through the PHF and through the Whale and through women's hockey. I love the connections that I've made. And I will forever, ever, ever be grateful that those people exist in my life. I adore women's hockey. I will never not support women's hockey. The PWHL, however, is making it very difficult to be as passionate of a supporter of women's hockey as I was for the PHF. Because they have made us feel like our fandom isn't good enough and that our teams didn't exist. And that these players that we love and adore, who are very good at the hockey, regardless of team, very good at the hockey, aren't good enough. And they're all 6 GMs for the PWHL have made egregious errors by not drafting somebody like Michaela Grant-Mentis, by not drafting somebody like Soraya Tinker, by not drafting somebody like Allie Thunstrom and Madison Packer. And I mean, the list literally goes on and on and on. There were 263 draft eligible women's hockey players. Out of that 263, about 150 of them had already played professional women's hockey in the United States between the PHF and the PWHPA. 90 players were drafted out of that 263, which doesn't include the 18 players who were signed prior to the draft. At the end of the day, even at maximum roster space, I have to pull up the calculator because I cannot remember it off the top of my head because I did this math already and it made my heart hurt. So apparently all teams will have a 23-man roster.
Okay.
So that's 138 players. So out of that 263, at the end of the day, after all the contracts are signed, after all the training camps are done, after everything, it is still 125 professional caliber women's hockey players who will not have a job playing hockey. And that doesn't include a whole bunch of PHF players who decided not to declare for the draft.
Right.
A whole bunch of women's hockey players who just recently retired. I mean, Casey Bellamy was going to play for the Whale this upcoming season, came out of retirement to sign a contract with the Whale and didn't declare for the draft. So if Mariah Fujimagari wants to sign a PTO in the ECHL to play with the Kalamazoo Wings, good.
Yeah.
If other goalies, forwards, whatever, want to sign PTOs or go to training camps that are open in the FPHL and the SPHL and the ECHL and the AHL, if they want to play hockey, go. Don't. I said this on Twitter. I'm not going to get emotional. Do not let this stop you from playing women's hockey.
Yep.
Because you are amazing at it. Don't let this stop you.
It's just
fun. I don't. There are leagues. There are women's leagues across the world. You've got to go to Sweden for a while. If you've got to go, there's. I think the ZHHL. I think that's the women's side of the KHL. Okay. If I'm remembering correctly, because I know that the Red Star the Kunlun Red Star,
Mhm.
they have a women's team.
Mhm.
Because the former assistant coach for the Icemen actually coaches the women's
Okay.
team. There are women's leagues that you can play in. They may not pay you as well, but do not stop.
Mhm.
Do not let this dampen your light on the world. Do not let this dampen your love for this game that we all love. Like, I may not play hockey anymore. I'm 37 and I've got a messed up foot leg and I'm fluffy. Like, I may not play hockey anymore, but I do whatever I can to stay involved in the game.
Mhm.
I go to local minor league hockey. I support the youth programs, both boys and girls. There's some really cool stuff that's about to happen when it comes to the hockey side of things that I'm involved in. Do not let this stop you. Keep playing, keep fighting for your spot. And the more that you play and the more that you fight for your spot, the sooner I think we'll see expansion teams in the PWH. Because it is obvious that there is not enough space for the level of athletes that exist in this sport. It's obvious that the fact that we took 11 teams down to 6, that is 5 teams worth of professional caliber women's hockey players.
11 competitive teams at that. It's not like there were 5 great teams and then 6 Arizona Coyotes. Like,
yeah, this is like 11, like, we made it into the Western and Eastern Conference finals of the NHL level teams.
right.
Like, these are professional athletes. 7 of them were literally professional athletes. 7 of those teams, because they existed in the Premier Hockey Federation, where they paid women a living wage to play the game of hockey. And yes, it took time to get there, but
they fought for it, and then it
they
was all just
put in the work.
yanked out from under them overnight.
And they stole our homework and they copied it and then pretended like we didn't exist. So, PWHL, I will support you. I will watch your games. I have no idea who I'm going to be a fan of team-wise. Like, none. 0. Like, I'm leaning towards Minnesota, but then, like, the Chicago lover in my heart is like, oh, Minnesota. Boston is just... Boston is no.
For wherever Allie Thunstrom plays. That's my challenge.
I will root for Kennedy Marchment, and I will root for Callie Flanagan, and I will root for I listed off so many of them, like so many of them. I will root for Jillian Dempsey in Montreal, even though that is weird.
I will root for Elaine Chuley in Montreal.
I will root for Elaine Chuley, even though she's not playing in Toronto, which just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But, you know, at least her and Jillian are playing together in a weirdo world that doesn't make sense. I will support them. There are several national team players who I adore, who I will support. There are many who I will not, because they have said things that are hurtful to this game and to these players. Just because
it's shrinking the game, not growing the game.
Just because things in season 1 and 2 may have been difficult, and pay may have been not enough, and the travel might have sucked, the locker rooms might have sucked, and, you know, per diem definitely sucked. That doesn't mean that what they did after that point wasn't improved, because the facilities got better, and the schedules got better, and the per diem got better, and the pay got better, but you weren't there to watch it happen. So you took your experience from 7 years prior and said that must still be what's happening. It's not how this works.
They grew every single year. They had a friggin' ESPN deal.
A multi-year ESPN deal.
Multi-year. And it was easy to watch PHF games. It was easy to watch them.
When they announced the PWHL draft, when I tell you that the initial article didn't even mention that it was going to be broadcast on YouTube, and I was like, oh, cool, we're back to Twitch again. Like, you're literally regressing.
You're
Like,
taking steps backwards.
like the NWHL started out with the founding four
Mm-hmm.
and then grew in its final season to 7 teams.
Mm-hmm.
And they started with not being able to watch the games anywhere.
Right.
And then being able to watch the games on Twitch. And then signing a deal with ESPN Plus. And then renewing that deal for multiple seasons. So that there was an easy way to watch women's hockey. They made hockey, like, I have never had more fun watching hockey than I did when I went to Tampa for the PHF playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The atmosphere was fun. The giveaways were fun. I still have my lighty up tambourine. It's over here. I still have my people having fun bracelet. I still have my little light up wand. It was fun.
Everything the PHF was doing was making hockey fun. Imagine that. And then this comes in, and I feel like it's just back to corporate bullshit all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna fail. I'm gonna say it right now. This league is going to fail.
And part of that is because they're alienating the existing women's hockey fans.
Exactly. That's how it grows. You encourage your fans to be fans of the game. Yeah. Like the players are. Mm-hmm. Instead of just making it this weird disconnect.
Yeah. You don't announce on, not even online, like it was breaking from journalists before it was even officially announced by the PHF that the league was acquired, and I saw several people call it a hostile takeover.
Yeah. You don't do that.
You wanted what we already had. And
you wanted it to be yours.
And you wanted it to be, we did the PHF, the NWHL, those players, Madison Packer, who played every season of the NWHL PHF. There are many other players who were draft eligible who played every season in the NWHL, the PHF. You made it seem like they didn't exist, that the work that they did didn't happen, that you are not literally building the foundation of these teams on the graves of the work that they did.
And that's why it's so hard for me to support this league. And like you said, I'm going to support the wonderful, amazing, talented players who will be playing in this league because they want to play professional hockey. And now this is their choice because the thing they had worked so hard to build was yanked away from them overnight.
And I am all for, I struggle because I wanted there to be a league, one league.
Yeah.
But
there was a league.
Yes, but I wanted because essentially the PWHPA, they were players on strike because a lot of them in the beginning played in the NWHL. And then they basically said, you don't pay us enough, we're leaving. And formed the PWHPA. I wanted there to be a moment where these two entities came together and said, we're going to grow this game. And the only way we can do it is if we do it together. We stop talking shit about each other. And we do this together. And we take our 4 exhibition teams and our 7 teams and hell, make 12 teams because we've got all these NCAA.
There's enough players.
We've got all these NCAA and all these U Sports athletes. 12 teams.
There's enough.
There's enough players.
There's enough players playing overseas in leagues that we just don't have the access to.
I mean, today I learned what the ZHHL was.
Exactly.
So, like, I didn't know what half of those acronyms are, but did I care? No, because they deserved to have where they played talked about, because it wasn't talked about in the PWHL article. They only highlighted the PHF, the PWHPA, and NCAA and U Sports. They didn't talk about any of the others. And I know it's 1 here and 2 here. It doesn't matter.
That's like invalidating everything that they've built with their career, all the hard work they've put into to make it onto a team. There's limited space on a team. Yeah. And they made it there.
We could have 2 teams of literally all the goalies who were draft eligible. Yeah. I want to start an all goalie hockey league.
Me too.
Where they wear the goalie pads and they fluffy monster it out.
Oh, it'd be so great.
And also, I feel like an awful human being because I didn't mention this, and I'm so sorry. Carly Jackson was not drafted by the PWHL.
Excuse me?
Carly Jackson was not drafted into the PWHL.
Okay, one more time. Because I don't think I'm understanding what you're saying to me.
Let me rephrase.
Okay.
Carly, the mullet who won the Isabel at the mullet, Jackson, twas not drafted by a PWHL team.
Okay, now I understand. The list just keeps getting worse.
And I feel awful for not mentioning that sooner. But
there's just so many names.
There's too many.
There's too many. And all of these players deserve to be playing on a professional team. And they were. They were.
A lot of these players were expecting to play on a professional team starting next month.
Yeah.
Because they'd signed contracts. So I just... It's a lot. And like we've said, PWHL, we will support the athletes that we want to support, who are amazing, who we adore, and
who believe in this game,
who fought for this game,
and the good of the game, not just themselves.
It's really hard when people on teams only fight for themselves.
Yeah, that doesn't work. So that's why I'm saying this league's going to fail, because that's what it was built on.
I'm starting to get the sads, so I feel like we have to stop. Because
yeah, probably a good idea.
I don't want to have the sads on the podcast. So Courtney, my friend, where can the humans find you on the internet?
Oh, goodness. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Courtney Dagger. Soup's easy.
Perfect. And I am on the Twitter at WonderBeffers. Of course, make sure you follow the podcast on the Twitter as well.
Absolutely.
At Talkwell Hockey Pod. Also on the gram. Same handle. I'm thinking 2 weeks. We've got training camp to get through. And then actually, wait, hold on. Let me pull up a calendar, because what is 2 weeks? 29. Oh, 2 weeks I'll be in Maryland. So we'll do something next weekend, and then we'll do like a quick little social media shout out, and then
there we go. We'll have a preseason game to talk about. Yeah,
we'll have preseason to talk about. We'll have some other things to discuss, and then
hopefully Connor Bedard makes us happy.
And then I've got personal and business travel all happening in the same week. Like I'm going to my mom's from the 4th to now the 9th. Like it was supposed to be the 8th that I flew home. But then my work was like, surprise, we're having a work trip. So then I'll be in Chicago from the 9th to the 11th. So our first episode will probably be after the 11th, because like the NHL season starts on the 10th. So we'll have like actual like hockey that matters in the standings to talk about.
Oh God, that's weird.
It will be weird. This off season has been like fast and slow and crazy and weird, and
yeah.
And I don't know.
It doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist.
No, time is just a weird construct. So we'll catch you on the next episode. Yeah, date TBD, because work and life and crazy, and
but soon.
This lady over here has like a golf tournament this weekend, which is
I do
why we're here today. So best of luck to Dagger.
Thank you.
Go beat them all. I've been Beth. That's been Courtney. We will catch you guys next time. Bye.
There's the players again.
How is this happening? I don't.
That's the perfect way to end.
I don't understand. Okay.
Thank you for watching this 5 in a Game Sports Network podcast. Now avoid the selfie and go